email him, tom@trentovision.tv. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to Trentovision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Trentovision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
There's always a moment in the psyche of a nation. There's always that defining, tangible, time-sensitive moment in the psyche, in the essence of a nation, when it is challenged, when it is questioned, when it is confused, when it tries to figure out just what is valuable, just what is true, just what is right, just what's worth living for, and just what's worth dying for. In this nation, in this nation's psyche, in the essence, in the core of the United States of America, 71 years ago today, that challenge was put forth in a way that hundreds of millions of citizens had not only never seen, but never contemplated or could comprehend. Yet when the psyche of a nation, the core of a nation, the essence of a nation, the heart of a nation is challenged, if indeed that nation is built on rock, built on principles that are true, that are valid, that are real, then those individuals who adhere to those principles will rise to that particular occasion. And thank God that 71 years ago today, December 7, 1941, America rose to the challenge, responded in such a way that not just America, but most of the world moved into a position of freedom, of justice, of liberty. The same principles that the same Americans fought for in 1776. Do we have December 7, 1941 available? I think it's worth playing over on this 71st anniversary of the attack by the empire. The United States has never declared itself an empire. We've simply been a nation blessed by God to exist for its people and to help others. But 71 years ago today, we were attacked by an empire, the Japanese Empire. And 71 years ago, plus one day, the President of the United States, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, said these famous words. And these words are pretty famous. We're queuing it up for you. But right now, this country, 11 years ago, had its psyche You ready? This country had its psyche, its essence, its heart challenged, and we rose up to the moment. But as our expert who's with us today, Frank Wilco, will explain, we are today a long way from September 11th, 2001 in terms of what it's going to take to defeat the enemy that's at the gate right now. But let's go back 71 years plus one day as we stop to recognize here in Boca Raton, Florida, our signal going all over South Florida, Central Florida, and our video going all over the world. Listen carefully.
Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt on December 8, 1941. Words are a little different than delivered September 25th, 2012 at the United Nations building by our current president, who said, "The future does not belong to those who dishonor the Prophet Muhammad." In 71 years, this country has traveled a very rocky road. This country has overcome each and every challenge put before it. 71 years, this country continued on the path of freeing nations held in bondage by despots, by dictators, by totalitarian rulers. But today, December 7th, 2012, we face an enemy of greater potential danger than the Empire of Japan. We face an enemy that is not a nation state, an enemy that does not wear uniforms, an enemy that by his own admission loves death more than life. Yet we're led today by a president that collaborates with groups that support, enhance, and develop this enemy. We're here, folks, TrentoVision.tv and WNN 1470 to help walk you through the confusing moment of history in which we live, where up seems to be down and down seems to be up, where that which is good seems to be right and that which is right seems to be wrong. But we've come through great difficulty, and if Americans join together to fight this enemy at this time, as FDR said then, we will advance to victory. It ain't going to be easy, that's for sure. And Frank Wuko, you've been on the front lines 23 years in the United States Navy, and you got out in 2004, and you were contracted back to take your skills and your work you learned in intelligence in the Navy and help with the development of a red team. We want to talk about that. If anyone wants to step in on this this unique day where we are remembering the sacrifices, the commitment, the challenges of 71 years ago, December 7, 1941, you can call at 888-565-1470. Frank Wuko, where were you on September 11, 2001?
Well, Tom, and thanks for having me on again. I really do appreciate it. I was in between duty stations. I had been down doing don't give me any sympathy for this. I don't want it. I was actually stationed in Key West, Florida. I know. Despite a letter
Sloppy Joes, right?
I tried to get out of it. I really did, but I made the sacrifice. Was down there doing counter-drug work at the Counter-Drug Joint Interagency Task Force, and that at the time, to folks who were inside of DOD and the interagency organizations, before 9/11, I mean, the next big thing they were going to be focusing on. In fact, George W. Bush was heavily focused on Latin America. That's where he wanted our next great sort of foreign policy effort to be made. And a lot of our resources were being redirected towards Latin America and the counter-drug fight. I was in Miami. Actually, one of our children had a medical condition that she had to go to Miami Children's Hospital for an extended period of time. And my wife and I were driving back from the hospital visiting her. And I remember we were both in separate cars, and I had the radio on, and I heard that an airplane had struck one of the towers. And at the time, they were reporting that it was a small single-engine aircraft, a small, general aviation type. And when we got to our interim location before we got back home, we were stopping at a store. I said, turn your radio on for a second. Listen to this. They're saying an airplane just hit one of the Twin Towers. And as soon as she turned her radio on, the report came across, a second airplane has just hit the towers. It's a large commercial jet. And I'm not claiming I made some great leap of analytical prowess or anything doing this, but I turned around and I looked at her and I said, this is Osama bin Laden. I said, that's Al-Qaeda.
Wow.
Mark my words.
Wow.
And a lot of folks who had at least, an observer seat into the counterterrorism world, and had, people who have been tracking the bombings in Africa and the USS Cole and that sort of thing. I was probably one of, a gazillion people who came to the same exact conclusion right at that moment. But we went home to my in-laws' house. We turned the TV on, and by this time the buildings were engulfed in flames. The most vivid image that I have in mind, and to me the most horrifying image, more so even than when the buildings collapsed, was before the buildings collapsed. On one of the towers, there was at the top corner of the tower, there was almost a huge chunk of that top corner slid off the building.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, my God, how many people are inside that piece of the building that just, it almost looked like a piece of an iceberg sliding off the top of, a large mountain of ice. And looking at the windows and how large that one piece was, the scale of the attack really hit me there. And, I will, of course, never forget. And then the immediate period afterwards, by that time I had orders to go to SOCCENT, and the SOCCENT Director of Intelligence was on the phone calling me saying, hey, can you get here now? We are deploying, we're loading up, and were it not for my daughter undergoing some open heart surgery at the time, I would have been right up there. But as soon as she came through it and we got a good clean bill of health on her, I was here in Tampa, Florida at U.S. Central Command and Special Operations Command Central by early December of 2001.
Frank, can I ask you a question here? This is Mark. After 9/11, there was a big push, to go after the people who perpetrated this. Mm-hmm. And over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, we're now doing outreach to a lot of these same types of people who committed the 9/11 attacks. The same philosophy, the same mentality, the same doctrine. I asked Mort this question earlier. I'd be interested on your take, especially for being with the red team ideology. Is it? And we're here to stop. Our whole point of being on the radio and being activists is to stop another 9/11 attack from happening, another December 7th from happening. Is it going to take another December 7th or 9/11 type of attack to wake America up to what this threat is, or what is your feelings on that?
It may. At this point, I would say it would almost have to elicit the type of response that might see the U.S. government, react with the will and the force to destroy this enemy. I want to say that not so much in fairness to Barack Obama, because that's not where my sentiments lie, but in fairness overall to the U.S. government's handling it, the post 9/11 period. I had a front row center seat for the entire whole of government approach to the post 9/11 period, and I will tell you that there was just as much outreach going on in the Bush administration. Maybe quite the level. But there was an awful lot of outreach going on. In fact, that's where a lot of this stuff really started. Was during the Bush administration. I think primarily because there were hopeful people at the time who were operating with a limited knowledge set on Islam itself and the Muslim world, who really believed that if we just act a certain way, if we do certain things, if we behave the way that we do as an advanced Republican form of government and all the instruments of governmental power and all that, then somehow these people will be inspired by our example and by so there was a lot of that going on. There was a lot of bending over backwards and forwards to appease the Muslim community under the Bush administration.
Yeah, we were very critical of the Bush administration from 2004 to 2008 ourselves, because that's when that political correctness just kind of took over. But I agree with you 100%, and I fear, and I absolutely fear that something major is going to have to happen before we change our attitude again. But like I said, we're here to try to wake up America before that happens.
Absolutely, I applaud your efforts to do that. I have had this talk often, not just lately especially, not just with groups like yours, but as you know, since I've sort of moved over to the new radio station about a year and a half ago, my prior program, which was owned by me outright, probably a lot like your program is, and all that kind of stuff. Before I became my show is owned, operated, whatnot by Clear Channel Media and Entertainment. They asked me to sort of expand the horizons of my programming so that I wasn't just talking about national security and homeland defense and things like that, but really sort of giving the full range of current events-driven news and commentary. And that has, given me the opportunity to kind of step into several different arenas like the one that you're in and others of similar types of Americans who are extremely concerned and worried about the direction that the country is going. The point I'm coming to, and this applies to many of the 9/11 groups or 9/12 groups and Tea Party groups that I've spoken to, is it's time for us and for folks like you and I and others to really become pilgrims, if you will, and become missionaries for this mission. Because as long as we're having this conversation with each other, and we all agree, as long as this conversation is sort of limited to an audience of people who are necessarily going to come to us to hear what we have to say, at a certain point, the information operation factor becomes limited to a certain audience size. So the next hard steps are going to be taking your message and our message and really getting out there amidst. And I know you guys do this all the time. You guys do this in guerrilla fashion, and I applaud the way that you do it. I think it serves as a great example for everyone who has the same concerns. Is if you are just meeting in a restaurant once a month with your conservative group, and you're having a conversation amongst yourselves about how horrible you think Barack Obama is and how wonderful the founding documents of this country are, then that's great, and that's a good thing to do. But if that's all you're doing, exactly. I call that group therapy, and it's sort of self-affirmative. So I would call other people to sort of follow the United West's example, getting out of the back rooms of those restaurants, getting off the keyboard and out of your jammies necessarily, if that's where you're fighting this battle, and get out there. Get out there amongst people who don't agree with you.
Well, that's exactly where we're going, and we're actually launching a new initiative, via the radio station to actually activate people, to actually put them those little small 4 to 5 groups of people who want to get involved, but they don't know how to get involved. They don't know how to get their story told. Well, we're going to be able to provide a conduit for that activist who says, I'm tired of going to the coffee shop. I'm tired. I want to do something. Well, we'll give you the tools, the implementation to which to do it, and your own independent group, not controlled by us, not dependent upon us, but as an access, a gateway point to help you get activated. And I think you're exactly right. It's the way to go. It's exactly the way to go. We're sitting around talking about it. It's not doing it. We have to get out there and do something.
Yeah, especially when we're sitting around talking to each other. I mean,
yeah.
There is nothing wrong with, and I know with my own radio program, and I'm sure with yours as well, there's nothing that I like more, as strenuous as it can be sometimes, than knowing that somebody who comes from a completely different school of thought, completely disagrees with me on something, is calling the program to step into the ring,
right,
and have a debate openly. Like I said, and that's it's a great thing that you guys do, especially if I'm not talking about outreach that we're all sitting here trying to make other people that disagree with us feel good, right, about their philosophies because their philosophies are wrong. But at least, giving them an environment where say, hey, listen, we're accessible. This is our information, and we welcome you to the battlefield of ideas.
Exactly. For example, if your attitude is, I'm tired of what they're doing to gays over in the Middle East, and I'm really, I'm a gay person, I'm for gay rights and everything like this, but I want to address this issue. Well, we'll help you do that. It's our issue too, and it is. There's a lot of liberals out there that this issue is their issue. This is actually coming out on the Islamic issue is actually a very liberal issue. It is not a conservative issue. And that we're taking the lead on it is quite insane. These leftist activist groups should be out there, as mad as we are by how these people are being killed, stoned, and tortured. That's something that they need to do. It's not my issue. That's your issue. But it is our issue. It's an American issue because we stand for freedom and light and liberty and truth.
And one of the things that works on liberals with any any subject matter where there is a, sort of personal or human intervention to be involved. They're suckers for victims, and you don't have to be a real victim to, enlist the sympathies and the actions of liberals. I mean, the Muslims, and in particular the Palestinians, have done a superb job. I mean, they've done a fantastic job of portraying themselves as eternal victims. The blame
mentality, yes.
So that's the only thing you need to tell a liberal is that somebody's suffering. The liberal necessarily doesn't even have to come up with a solution. All they have to do is say that they feel badly for that person, and they're hooked. But the presentations that I do, that we were talking about earlier, I have delivered those to mixed audiences where there were people of all political persuasions in the class, and I have had folks come up to me that clearly were not conservatives. They were liberals, and they were saying, "My God, I had no idea. I mean, I really had no idea that this is what it was." So.
No, Tom.
Yeah. I'm back here, Frank. How you doing? I think Mort. Are you back with us, Mort? Mort, you still there?
I'm struck. Yeah, I'm struck by the difference between and the similarities, but mostly the difference between radio today and radio in 1941. Because back when Pearl Harbor was announced, I heard FDR speak on that following Monday, December 8th. Heard him speak in the gymnasium where they had a radio hookup, so I heard it. I didn't see it in film until about 2 weeks later when it came to our local theater in black and white film. But in those days, we got our news from the radio. It was all one-sided. We had no feedback. We got news from the radio, got news from our newspapers, and from certain personalities on the radio, and it was a one-way street. We heard the news that as they edited and as they decided to speak, and I don't ever remember anybody writing a letter to the editor or calling into a talk show because there was no such thing. So today, people really fail to realize the power they have by being able to talk back and speak back and express opinions on radio and on internet and on email and tweet and all the other things that we have now. And it's suicidal not to become informed about what's going on and take action that way. I've been to so many meetings over the last 4 or 5 years where after a presentation, and Tom, you know this well, after a presentation of an hour or 2 hours, somebody always gets up and says, "Yeah, that's all very good, but what can I do?" Which means they didn't listen. You want to kill them. But we have to listen. We have to become informed. I know that the next morning, December 8th, 1941, every guy in my school, I was in high school, every guy was talking about joining up and signing up, and a lot of them did who were of age. But the reason we wanted to do that was patriotic, but also we wanted to be with our schoolmates because they were all going out to defend our country, and that's what that was about. We were in a fight against the Axis, which was Germany, Italy, and Japan. We had a finite enemy, and there was a way to go. You joined one of the services, and you did what you were told, and you hoped to hell that you got in your licks, and hope to hell that you lived. But if you didn't, you got a gold star in the window, and your mother was crying all the time. Simpler times, on the one hand. On the other hand, there is an analogy with radio, which is an immediate, very, very immediate medium. As I've said, radio is pictures for the ears, and you guys are playing a part. I'm just...
And to highlight, I mean, we have a communication network, a communication vehicle that is so much different that we might be able to avoid that next war if we use this vehicle properly and we use this vehicle intelligently. We're not necessarily have to go to war. We're in an ideological war, yes, and we have to defeat that ideology. We have to reduce the prominence of this KKK mentality down to what the KKK is today.
And we have to be able to express ourselves and articulate our strength of character and strength of resolve to the Sharia Islam, and all those people, and say, hey guys, you can be as ugly as you want, you can smell as bad as you want, you can block every artery in Paris, you ain't gonna win. And we don't believe in Muhammad or anybody else. We believe in what we believe in. And try to change my mind and, look over your shoulder.
Yeah, this is Tom now, Frank. But we have a problem here. Mark has been speaking, and Mort, the M&Ms here, analyzing the situation. But at 36 minutes past the hour on WNN 1470, for those of you just getting in your automobiles or getting home and turning on Trento Vision, I'm your host, Tom Trento. Mark Campbell's in the studio here, as is Invisible Mike. We miss CJ. She is under the weather. She'll be back next week, rest assured. She sends her love to everyone. Frank, CJ is one of our other co-hosts here, and we've missed her this week. But we are discussing on this December 7th, we're discussing, obviously, Pearl Harbor Day, 71 years ago, the attack by the Empire of Japan against the United States at Pearl Harbor. And we have Mort on the line, our good friend Mort, who was there. He was there. He was in America. He heard it. He saw it. He enlisted, and a few years later. And we also have our expert guest on, Frank Wilco, who 23 years in the United States Navy, then contracted back to do some work I want to get into in a second here, Frank. And Frank also has a radio show. Let's plug your radio show, Frank, so that our listeners has a fellow. Your officers, your flag officers, your generals, your admirals. It looks like they drank the Kool-Aid, the Obama Kool-Aid, and they've gone over to the dark side on this stuff. And as I understand it, Frank, you, in your red team work, and we're going to get into what that means and everything, in your red team work, you had to take on a new identity, and I want to show everybody about a minute or two of a phenomenal video everybody needs to see. What is the easiest location for people to see what I'm going to be showing them here, Frank?
A couple different ways to get at that. One is just go onto YouTube, and if you type in my name, Frank Wuco, W-U-C-O, and the words Jihad live role play, that'll get you to the video that you're talking about. Also on my consulting website, which is Red Mind Solutions. There's a link there to lectures and speaking event.
Red Line Solutions. Okay, here's what you're going to see on the
Red Mind, as in the word mind.
Oh,
as
mind,
in,
Red Mind. Okay.
Mind or mind your own business.
Okay, Red Mind Solutions. What you're going to see on the Trento Vision side and what you're going to hear on the radio side is a little piece of Frank doing, and this is highly produced. I mean, I got to give you, we do a lot of videos. This is good work. You guys put time and effort and money and thought and editing into this. It's really slick. It looks like a movie, and I know you were going for that. You're going to see our nice, calm, retired naval intelligence officer. We're having a nice conversation as a crazy jihadi who wants to kill Americans. Frank morphs into, what's his name again, Frank?
Fuad Wasul.
Pastavazul. Mohammed Pastavazul. He's half Italian and he's half Muslim. You're going to see Frank morph into this, and take a look at this right now.
Wasul al-Uthman.
And this is Frank.
I am the voice of jihad against the West. I was captured on December the 2nd of 2001 during the Crusader invasion of Afghanistan in the holy city of Kandahar. I was held at Bagram Air Base until January 2002, then transferred to my current position at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. In April of 2002, my taped interrogations are used by the U.S. Army to train their soldiers on why we fight you. In my favor, they were also leaked on the internet. And I must be clear, I am irreconcilably committed to jihad as an article of my faith, because the U.S. remains equally committed to its crusade against Islam.
The tape, which was translated by both the Associated Press and site intelligence groups, says the current White House is following the same.
Yep.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Oh, Mohammed Pastavazul, let me ask you something. What do you think of the Trento Vision show, Mohammed?
I think that someday
I kill you.
we'll have to kill you.
Well, that wouldn't be nice, Mohammed.
Or unless you want to convert for Islam, then everything is.
If I convert, okay. What about these virgins? What about these 72 virgins? You believe that, Pastavazul? You believe that? The 72 virgins?
We lost him.
No, you had me. I just want to say it's a special program note, because this is actually the first time that Fuad and Frank have been seen in the same room.
Now let's explain.
This is Trento Vision breaking news.
Breaking news. Let's explain to the viewers and the listeners that you don't have such a carefree life that you can go make funny movies. I mean, this is a serious effort for training. Give us the background on the video, and then help us understand your red team.
Actually, this sounds very interesting. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the video, you mentioned the production quality, and it was actually produced and filmed out in Los Angeles at LA Center Studios. I know where your minds are going. I know you guys. Not in the San Fernando Valley.
Okay,
actually in Los Angeles at LA Center Studios, which is this huge campus that I never knew existed. You think of all the big studios, Universal and MGM and all this. Well, probably 90% of all television series, network and cable television series, are now filmed at this one central complex.
Really?
Center
Did not know that.
And if you look at LA Center Studios, you look at the movies that have been filmed there, it's just about every movie coming out of Hollywood now touches LA Center Studios. So I was very fortunate. The guys that I linked up with, who are the producer, was in fact, the fellow who you saw interrogating me there was a former special mission unit intelligence officer, and he was also the producer. Ken Robinson is his name. He is a writer as well in Hollywood and has written a couple of successful TV series that have actually gotten picked up. One was called The E-Ring. It was a Jerry Bruckheimer TV series. So that explains the value, and I was just lucky to run into those guys to do it.
And what was the cost of that thing, just for curiosity, to put together like a piece like that?
Yeah, it something like that. I don't know what it would really cost. He's a friend. He's a military colleague, so he produced it for me at an astonishingly, I would say, low $11,000, $12,000.
Really? You're kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
That was $100,000.
That's $100,000 piece of work easily, if not more.
Yeah, it's the production value on it is extremely good and high, and again, I was just another one of these blessings that that have worked its way to me, and the video itself is about a 9.5-minute video that is intended to really highlight the reason or the purpose of these lectures, which is to, as the video says, your encounter with Fuad Wasul, the jihadist, is as close as you will ever come to a face-to-face, one-on-one encounter in a room with somebody who has committed his life to jihad. And what you begin to understand about this person and why people walk away from these presentations and lectures really forever changed about the way that they look at Islam and the way that they look at the world is that they understand that they're not dealing with a person who's insane. They are not dealing with somebody who is stupid or ignorant. They are not dealing with somebody, they're not dealing with an irrational person. They are dealing with a person who, in many cases, is highly educated, very intelligent, from his worldview and his theological stand, has made an extremely rational decision to prepare the earth for God's final judgment through jihad and to correct the corruption and the sins of the earth by subsuming as much of the un-Islamic world into the house of Islam as he possibly can. And then, again, the commitment to jihad is clear. So the videotape itself actually tells the story of Fuad Wasul. It tells what he was doing in Afghanistan, how he was captured, how he was interrogated, and now how he is able to come speak to people upon request. And that's it.
But here's the question, Frank. You made this, and you keep referring to an audience and the people there. Who are the audiences? If a Tea Party group wants you to speak, do you do this? Is this for military briefings, intelligence briefings? What's the format in which you use this piece of media?
It was developed initially for United States Central Command, where the then Commander, General John Abizaid, wanted a cultural briefing that exposed people to what he called cultural fault lines in the CENTCOM AOR. And part of that was jihad, the phenomenon of jihad and the commitment therein. And so this was actually given, this presentation, to every person who deployed through U.S. CENTCOM out to Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere in the AOR. It's probably 3,000 to 4,000 military, DoD civilians, contractors, and I've also presented it to other government agencies. It's a regular part of the Red Team curriculum at the Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. So military officers going through those courses and Command and General Staff School have seen the presentation, as well as industry. I've presented it to the hotel and hospitality industry, including Hilton Worldwide. I have spoken at their Global Security Directors Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. So this was an audience of about 250 to 300 people from Hilton hotels all over the world, including the Middle East. And they walked me in an orange jumpsuit with several actual FBI agents from the Phoenix office, off-duty SWAT officers, mostly for my security. Arizona's an open carry state, and as I just really hate Fuad Wasul as much as the next guy. I don't want to see him get shot. American. But there was actually a debate in the front row. There were two gentlemen from Egypt who were sitting there. One of them was the former commander of Hosni Mubarak's Presidential Guard. The other was a younger guy who was in the Egyptian National Police version of the FBI's hostage rescue team. And they were actually having a debate among themselves during the presentation as to whether or not it was real.
That's
so you had
tremendous.
the young guy going, I think this might be an act. And the older guy was saying, nope, it's not an act. He's from Yemen. I can tell by his accent. Real. So the people come unglued. We've actually, we've had people who have had very bad reactions to it in the audience, and very sort of, it's very compelling.
But you get into the mind. You get into the mind.
What
right?
year? What year was this made?
This, let's see. I want to say we produced it in 2010.
Yeah.
And just recently sort of, made it available for public viewing on YouTube. I used to keep it under a private viewing because it was something I would present to clients.
Oh, that explains the date. Okay.
Who were interested, but it's available for anybody to view, and if they'd be interested in having one of the live presentations for their organization or their corporation or government, civilian alike, it's available to them.
Well, here's the reason why I'm asking. As you know, I'm one of the authors of Sharia, The Threat to America, with 18 other folks, most of whom have extensive military intelligence, law enforcement experience, and just about everybody's been banned from being allowed to brief in any formal way for the USG right now. And I'm a little hard-pressed to see how this video has been allowed to be used, particularly at CENTCOM, which is becoming so politically correct, which was my reference before, that many of the guys that should be on our side are falling over to the Obama side. These generals, they're not using the word jihad. They can't see. All they see as a threat.
Islam. Yeah.
Yeah, all they see as a threat is Al Qaeda. We fight Al Qaeda. Nothing else. That's it. Al Qaeda. Nothing else. Taliban's okay. Muslim Brotherhood. They're a secular organization. They still letting this
now is that they just what they're fighting are violent extremist organizations.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now I will say. I hear what you're saying. There is this sticky little instrument, though, that our generals, and many of them are political and politically correct, and they are, so many of them are eager to really earn their next star, and many of them, they're stuck by this little thing called the Constitution of the United States.
The thing they took an oath towards, you mean?
Yeah, but it also, by law, says that the president is their commander-in-chief. Now, what ends up happening with a lot of these guys, 90% of whom are conservative, who do not follow this president's political points of view at all, my observation is that what happens to them psychologically is that they believe that their oath to the Constitution, their oath to follow the orders, obey the orders of the president and the officers appointed above them, is much more than an oath. They swing way too far in the other direction of aiming to please the president, as though they haven't taken an oath of obedience, but rather they have sworn fealty to a king.
Right.
Many of them have actually lost, I believe, a real keen understanding of what their oath of office is.
All right. On that note, I want to pursue that. We have to take a break here. Can you hang around, or do you have to go?
No, I'll hang in.
Hang in. I want to make that. That's a very important point right now. And you live over there in CENTCOM territory, and we got a few questions about what the boys are doing on their off time with all the Tampa anti-jihadi or jihadi bimbets over there. So But we're going to get into a little more of this with Frank Wuko, who has a radio show, 970 FLA, right? 970 FLA.
WFLA, 970 out of Tampa. And
2 to
also
4?
Visit me at frankwuko.com.
All right.
Sunday at 2 to 4. Sunday at 2 to 4.
This is Tom Trento and Mark and Mike, and we'll be back in just a few moments.